that this awareness is available for your questions.
Do we just chime in and ask a question, or what's the protocol?
Yes, identify yourself and say hello, and then present your question.
Hi, this is Michael L. from New Hampshire. I have a couple questions. So I'm going to start off with a more general one since you're talking about reality, or you brought up reality. This has to do with the phenomenon known as the Mandela Effect. And basically what it is it's commonly shared memories by certain select groups of consciousness that never occurred, but several groups of people remember certain things differently in the past than they actually are. And there's a lot of conjecture that the particle accelerator CERN is doing some sort of reality manipulation or timeline mergers that is altering the timeline and changing the timeline from ones that people who have these common shared memories were originally on. They kind of got the timeline off kilter. I just was wondering if the awareness could comment on the Mandela Effect, what it is exactly, and what effect it's had on people.
First, your name again, please.
Michael L. from New Hampshire.
Michael, greetings to you, Michael, and a very interesting question regarding the Mandela Effect. It is basically about timelines and different experiencing and shifting sometimes from one timeline where something was held to another where it never happened. And the reason, of course, it is called the Mandela Effect is because this is something that many noted when Mandela himself died. Many thought he died in April, and indeed, Barack Obama went to South Africa around that time, and he was not able to meet with Nelson Mandela. And then several months later, it came out that Mandela had died just then, not in April. But many had seen information, especially since Barack Obama had been there and she had not been able to see him, suggesting that Mandela, was still there at the time. Now, it is easy to deny then, to say, no, he simply didn't live at that die at that time in April, but lived on. And this became the reality concept held by most, the timeline held by most in regards to Mandela's death as having occurred later on in September or October, whenever it was. But what if you had an experience, and some who had that experience at that time where they heard that Nelson Mandela died in April were correct, that this was the timeline, but there was a shift. And that those who may have had the original experience were then afterwards confused because in accordance to what their information was at the time, he died in April. So why is he still alive in September or whenever it was that he officially was declared dead? This awareness would suggest that there are other things similar in nature as this Mandela Effect that many of you have had experiences of on your own personal timelines, and that it becomes difficult for many to understand what this was about. But you are in a state of flux, if this awareness could say it that way. And sometimes that which are the timelines can shift by themselves, or because there is some kind of inner intent, spiritual in its nature, that gives you this experience. Now, it is not seen that this is necessarily because of things that they did in CERN. In fact, this awareness would say that CERN has been decommissioned quite some time ago. And it was never able to accomplish really what those who brought it into play in the first place ever wished for, or rather, that it did not, they could not do what they wanted to do with it, to find the God spark, for example. But this changing of the timelines, that somehow people who ran the CERN device got their way, is not seen as completely accurate by this awareness. It is seen that there was a different reason why some saw this as the event that happened, that he died in April, this being Mandela, and some saw it later. And it is more relevant and more important, perhaps, to feel it out in your own being as what works for you. And to understand that actually what this does indicate, if you have had such an experience, is that you have the capacity, as each actually does, to manifest such an event, such an occurrence, or the lack of an occurrence, perhaps. First of all, does this make sense to you, Michael?
Yes.
But it is intriguing and interesting. And in a strange way, this awareness is seeing here, for an example, that this type of manipulation of the minds of many is more that which you could call a psyop by certain three-letter agencies, a certain three-letter agency, that are trying very hard to shift reality around, to manipulate, to make people so confused that if you told them the sky was black, that most would say, yes, I just didn't see it earlier. What this awareness is getting to is that if this awareness, will simply call them the cabal, who are trying very hard to manipulate reality and shift it around and do psyops on people, that the Mandela Effect can help you understand why it is that the deep cabal right now is saying things that are absolutely the opposite in the truth of things. For example, as you know, President Trump is under indictment 3 times over, perhaps a 4th to come. And that which is accused of him, like talking about the election and how it was rigged and who did it and what was done, etc., etc., that Trump, is being accused by these who are the controllers, or who are desperately trying to control things, because they are trying to make everyone believe that which Trump is speaking of, the truth of the situation of the presidential election of the 2020, that none of that happened. They are deliberately doing a psyop on that which is the collective consciousness of America, certainly, but globally as well. Can you see this, Michael? How this is an example of an application of Mandela Effect to try to shift people so that they wouldn't believe the truth of the situation that Trump is talking about, and instead are completely reversing that truth to make it seem like Trump is the criminal. But the truth is, many know that there was cheating and that the elections were stolen. And yet there are those now who are thinking maybe it wasn't so, because the mainstream media is painting a different picture. Maybe there are those of the 3-letter agency who are doing the psyops. But is it true or isn't it true? Do you see the level of confusion that is being created here by those who have an intention to shift the people so that they will not believe the truth, but rather a lie? Do you get that?
Yes, I think it's very apparent that there was massive voter fraud on a scale never before seen in the United States. And
exactly.
Yeah, and they've done a good job of confusing the facts and obscuring people's perceptions and making people be perceived as unhinged or crazy, who try to
Or
shine.
even worst of all, that they are conspiracy theorists and nutcases.
Exactly.
This in the way of humor, for it is very funny in a way. But do you see how there are those who understand how to manipulate the consciousness to create a different timeline? And what is also important here is that if a person were to believe the altered timeline, the new timeline, then yes, of course, Mandela died in September, not in April. Yes, of course, there was no cheating in the 2020 election, and the man that speaks this truth is a liar and a conspiracy theorist. Do you see why certain ones who work on a psychic level and the level of trying to manipulate human consciousness would have it as their intent to make people believe not the truth of something, but a different projection of that truth, a lie even, that is taken on as truth. This is, in a way, how they have manipulated throughout history those who have had charge here and dominion here, to try to make people think that history even is something other than it is told to be or said to be, or that it is exactly what is told to you. In truth, there is a lot of manipulation of history, and that those who hold history to be a certain way cannot accept when a new version comes to light. And there will be much of this happening. Indeed, it has already begun, where people are now finally starting to ask questions and to see things in a different light. But there is much controversy here still. All in all, this awareness asked, though, has this answered your question about the Mandela effect?
In part, though, I do have a follow-up question.
Please present your follow-up question.
If I can just say something. Michael, it's great having you on board, and it's great to have you on here. I'm noticing that when you are unmuted that there's a lot of feedback happening, so I'm just wondering if you've got two devices happening in your location. If you have, just turn one of them off and that will stop the echoing from happening. Okay, thanks.
Roger.
And
go
when
ahead,
you
please.
are ready.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, so the awareness mentioned that a lot of the timeline differences are from one's own manifestation. So I know you can, on your own, you can merge onto different timelines just through your own consciousness and so forth. And then the awareness also mentioned that some of it is through manipulation, through intelligence agencies and so forth. Common held memories. I have three in particular that come to mind. One is the Bernstein Bears versus the Bernstein Bears. I read those children's books as a kid, and that's a big one that everyone remembers for sure. It was definitely the Bernstein Bears. Depends, adult diapers. Now it's Depend. It was never with the S. And the third one being what was the third one?
The Ford Motor logo.
Yeah, that's a big one too. There's a lot, but things like that. Is that because I personally, on my own account, and those who remember that we jointly merged on a different timeline ourselves, or was that somehow manipulated by the powers that be? Because there's some big ones like that a lot of people consciously remember. I'm just curious which aspect of the Mandela effect, things like that. Oh yeah, Bragg's apple cider vinegar. Now it's Bragg. It was never Bragg's with the S. I'm just curious, little things like that. Is that the individuals consciously changing their timelines as a group, or are those little things like manipulation from the government groups? Would the awareness care to comment?
Yes. 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 No. 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 What would you like to choose here? Yes, no, perhaps, maybe? Why this awareness is being vague is because this is such an interesting aspect that has so much to do with one starting to awaken to the truth of a greater reality of their own being. But because this is also an experience in having been manipulated by those who have had understanding of such things, but have had to keep it under wraps and had to keep people asleep and dumbed down. Because in actuality, there are more often experiences that are of this nature than has ever been realized before. That which is your present experience of reality, a third dimensional reality, is supposed to be fixed and constructed in such a way that you cannot have such events take place. So there is such denial if an event such as the Mandela Effect happens at all. But really, this is more indicative of you having an experience, thus the yeses there, of having such an experience that, yes, you have experienced this with the name Bragg versus Braggs, or the Bernstein books, whatever, that is relevant to you. You are the central and primary focus of your experience in this physical reality. But you are, as all humans are, they do not necessarily recognize or realize this, but you are able to shift things around. Now, the most common time that you will be able to shift things around and have alternate experiences is during that which you would call the dream time, when you can go into the dream and have an infinite variety of experiences, going here, going there, shifting this, shifting that, so that in a dream, that which once might have been so is altered from that which is your waking memory of something. But there is no question in the dream state, because it is understood this is you in your middle self, that is you in the spiritual form outside even of the physical body at that time of the dreaming, that you can be so flexible and to shift from one high adventure to another, or one mundane adventure to a mundane lower event. But to do that in physicality, in context of your experience when you are awake and living the physical third dimensional life, that is curtailed, that is restricted, but that is breaking down as well. So people are having experiences of such a strange nature, that there is a huge shift in consciousness that is underway. This awareness has spoken this tonight already in its opening message, but it has been so for some time. And that this has many implications. This awareness will not go into all of those implications, but imagine, if you will, that you are in a shifting of consciousness, of human consciousness. Imagine, if you will, that one day you are walking down your street, and it is an urban neighborhood, and many cars are parked on the street, and you walk along to go to the bus stop, and you pass those many cars, and say there are 100 cars on the street that you have walked along to get to your bus stop. And you make no notice, because this is normal. Every day there are 100 cars parked along the streets. Every day you walk past these cars. And then the next day you walk past these cars, a shift in consciousness has taken place, and instead of 100 cars, you are walking along a street where there are 50 cars. But because you did not realize the shift happened, suddenly 50 cars on that street is the norm. And therefore there is no confusion, normally. Because normally it is not great enough, or the person perhaps is not in a place where they are understanding that there has been a shift. But what if you suddenly realize there's something wrong here? What if you, Michael, as you walk along, think, there's not so many cars here. Where did all the cars go? This could be because you are starting to awaken yourself to being able to perceive such an event. You might say to someone, can you see there's less cars? And that someone might say to you, no, there's always 50 cars along this street. What's wrong with you? And That may be it. Or you may find this is something that causes you to seek at a deeper level. Is it possible that your reality is somehow shifted? How do you find this out? You find this out through an inner investigation, through inner communications with those parts of your own being that have greater awareness of such things. It is intriguing to think that timelines could be shifting all the time. And it is your focus on a timeline that gives you your orientation on that timeline. And often there is no questioning. There is no looking beyond this certain point. It is only an acceptance of that which is now so, as always having been so. Does this make sense to you, Michael?
Absolutely. Reality is in constant flux. There's no past, no future. It's just a ever-present now. I guess the trick is mastering your ability to manipulate and create your own reality, which is difficult on this third dimensional plane.
It is difficult, but it is part of why you have come. All who have had that spiritual understanding that they came in with are awakening to that which are the deeper layers and levels of understanding that all is in flux, that you can awaken, that you can realize that that which is the reality you have been sold on may not actually be the truth of it. Is history true? Everyone holds history to be true as it was taught to them. But there is much that is coming out now that is showing that the history that you were told has been reshaped many times before, and that it has even been changed radically in certain events. There is that, for example, around the Tartarians and how they once were prominent, and now many do not even believe that they ever existed because of the manipulation of a group that has had it within their capability to manipulate truth and make the truth seem to be something else than what it is. Or is it what it is, and now you are beginning to see the truth that is there presenting? It is complex, but it is an amazing time to be alive to such things, to be awakening to such truth. And that you may realize that this is all part of that which is you coming to mastery with your own conceptualization of that which you could call reality. That which most experience as the third dimensional reality construct is that which is entirely, completely the truth to them. They believe that economically you must work hard, save hard, buy a house, get a mortgage, do all the right things in the third dimensional experience. And then there are others who say, no, I can call this into my life. I can call abundance into my life without having to put my nose to the grindstone. Do you get it, Michael?
Not only do I get it, but I understand your original answer now. Yes, 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 no, no, no. It's really what I choose. Do I want the to be my own power and my own choice of choosing different timelines, or do I want to give that power up and put that on the powers that be? Oh, they manipulated the timeline on me and taking the power away from me. So if that's the choice, then I choose to be the creator of my own Mandela Effect. I merge those timelines on my own. I'm retaining my power.
Excellent. You have it. And there's more, but you have made a huge leap forward just now in understanding this to be so. Do you see why in the cards drawn today, an act of applied synchronicity, the suggestion was that you have chosen to come here, that you are part of spirit and part of the creation and part of that which is the creator's energies, for you are the creator. So what you have just said is that which expresses in the unique way you said it, that same message, that when you come to the edge of the cliff and you are looking down, that which is the leap of faith that some are said must be taken when you come to the edge is maybe understood differently, because it is now suggesting that it is what you believe And if you believe that you could not step off the edge of the cliff and be supported, then this awareness would say, do not step off the edge of the cliff. If you hold that it is possible that you will be supported, and not only is it possible, it is how it will be, then when you step off the cliff edge, you will be supported. Your wings will be, the wind under the wings will take you higher. Do you see this? Do you understand this?
Yes, and I believe that's a super high level of mastery that is very difficult to actually obtain. And if I actually manifest that power, I would manifest it on the ground. I wouldn't go to a cliff.
Perhaps stepping off a 3-inch high curbstone would be high enough for a first attempt at it. Do you remember the movie Matrix, where Neo is ready to jump the gap between the two buildings? But mostly they fail. Everyone else wondered if he would make it, and he did not. And he came and crashed down into the earth and bounced up again. Do you remember this from the movie?
I sure do.
And it is similar, that it is all right to take jumps at it and to make mistakes and maybe not get it right. But this is a playground, this whole level of conscious awareness and understanding that you exist in, that is held as sacrosanct, and without any doubt it is only a physical reality and nothing else. That as you break through the barriers, you do not look at the barrier that tells you that's all there is, you look beyond it. And had Neo understood this, he might have looked beyond to the other building and not looked down, and might have made the jump. But it does not matter, because you can make that jump 100 times, 1 billion times, or never. But when you do make it, then you'll know it, because you have shifted that which is your perspective of a reality mindset.
Now, if you shift...
But remember, it is believing it that matters most, and knowing it to be true. You were about to say.
If you shift your reality perspective to that drastic degree where you become as Neo in regards to your ability to manipulate your own reality, to fly, to manipulate it in any way you seem fit, that almost seems at that point that you would ruin the game of third dimensionality. And
yes, you would ruin the game, perhaps, if you choose to look at it this way. Or you could liberate yourself from that which was artificial and false in the first place, so that you can move on to a greater truth, a greater way of being. Right now, that which is occurring in that which is this simulcast of this particular reality construct, that is the third dimensional dualistic construct, is being disassembled, is being brought down. That which has been the manipulations and control held by the many who are the dark ones for so long, that it is slipping out of their fingers, and yet they will not accept this. They are doing whatever they can to restore their power. But the point this awareness is making is that if you stay focused on that old reality, but at the same time you are sensing a new reality, a new dawning of a new age, for example, the golden age, and you allow yourself to be pulled to the old reality, you will continue to experience that old reality as valid. The bigger challenge, of course, right now is that you turn away from the old reality and say, that is my reality. It is called the energy, the source energy timeline. And that is what is now beginning to emerge more and more. But it is a transitional period of time, so that many are still very challenged by the old reality. Perhaps it would be better to say not only challenged, but accepting of an old reality, because the new reality is not quite one that one is familiar with. And mistakes may be made, or maybe there is that compulsion to not believe something like that because you are still struggling with a belief system that gives validity to the old system. It is a challenging time, but it is at the same time a very amazing time. And as these experiences become more and more of that which you would call the new norm, that you will find yourself more inclined towards that which is the future, not the past, if one wishes to think of it that way. Another way of thinking of it is that in the centering of your focus on this and how you hold things, that as you come more and more to the realization that things are simply not what you have been told, that lie upon lie upon lie has been told to you, just about everything is a lie, that you can start to break free, to go beyond the barriers, to enter a new reality. That is not the reality that everyone else necessarily holds, but it is your reality. And thus it is that it is you alone, Michael, that defines your own reality construct. How does that sound to you?
Sounds like I can either ascend from physical reality or I can enjoy a human experience.
Perhaps you can do both. Perhaps you can enjoy your human experience because you know you are of a different order, that you have the conceptual strength and power within you to imagine something quite different. And sometimes it will manifest and sometimes it will not. Sometimes you will find that you are flying and sometimes you are bouncing on the street below. But the important thing is that you are here now, having this experience that is beyond that which once was. And that as you awaken and hold it to be so more and more, it does become the new norm, the new timeline, and the new reality for you. Does this open enough new doors for you, Michael?
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Excellent. And this awareness, thank you for your very intriguing questions and your open-mindedness today and to have this discussion with this awareness. That this awareness is complete, and we'll move to another question. But this awareness again says thank you, Michael.
Thank you.